All right, picture this. You're sitting in a dimly lit, completely windowless room. The air is sterile, a wire is strapped tightly across your chest, blood pressure cuffs are squeezing your arm, and cold metal plates are attached to your fingertips. Now, this isn't just a scene from some gritty spy movie. This is the very real, very high-stakes world of intelligence screening. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely demystify the psychological reality of the polygraph machine. So let's dive right into this and see what really happens behind those closed doors. So the absolute first thing we need to understand here is that the polygraph machine, it's not magic. It cannot read your mind, and it actually doesn't inherently know when you're lying. It simply records physiological phenomena. We're talking about your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your electrodermal response, which is basically just a fancy way of saying how much you're sweating. The entire system is built on this one major assumption. When you feel threatened by telling a lie, your body reacts automatically, and the machine measures that physical stress. That's the whole shebang. And while the doors to these interrogation rooms are usually locked incredibly tight, we actually know exactly how they operate. The rigorous screening practices we're exploring today are the exact procedures used for top secret and enhanced top secret clearances across major allied intelligence agencies. We're talking about the CSE, CSIS, and right through to the US NSA and CIA. Make no mistake, this is considered the gold standard of government interrogation. Section 1. The procedure. Inside the exam room. Okay, so the exam itself is designed as a pretty grueling three-stage process. Step 1 is the pre-polygraph interview. On paper, this is where the examiner collects detailed biographical and medical data. But really, they're using this time to subtly develop the specific questions they're going to use against you later. Then comes step 2, the actual exam, where your physiological reactions are meticulously measured and recorded while you answer. And then we hit step 3, and this is absolutely crucial. The post-polygraph interview. This is exactly where the friendly clinical facade drops, because if the examiner sees something on those charts they don't like, this rapidly turns into a full-blown hostile interrogation. Section 2. The trap. Comparison question technique. The comparison question technique, or CQT for short, is the core psychological mechanism the machine relies on. It works by pitting two very different types of questions against each other. On one side, you have your relevant questions. These address the primary security concerns, the big stuff like espionage or loyalty. On the flip side, you have comparison questions. These are incredibly broad, probable I questions about your past integrity. Now, the logic here is fascinating and honestly a little terrifying. The idea is that a truthful person should actually react much more strongly to the comparison questions. Why? Because they're designed to make literally anyone nervous about their past moral failings, whereas a completely truthful person supposedly has nothing to hide regarding the relevant spy questions. Let's get really specific about what you're actually asked in that chair. There are 4 exact relevant questions that target an applicant's loyalty. First, they ask about your involvement in espionage or sabotage against the state. Second, they ask about any support for extremist violence. Third, they press you hard on whether you've ever leaked classified data or handled it without authorization. And finally, number 4, they flat out ask if you are actively withholding information during the test itself. But here is where the psychological manipulation gets incredibly clever. You know that 4th question about withholding information we just mentioned? It's known as a sacrifice relevant question. And get this, it is completely unscored. The examiners know that simply introducing a major, high-stakes security topic is going to cause a physiological spike out of pure surprise. They call this the novelty effect. So they deliberately sacrifice this first question to just absorb your initial shock, ensuring that your reactions to the remaining scored questions are measured accurately. It's totally calculated. Now, let's look at the other side of the scale, the comparison questions. Like we talked about, these are specifically designed to spike the baseline anxiety of honest people. They'll ask about theft or dishonesty at work, lying to a person in authority to get out of trouble, or betraying the trust of someone close to you. Notice how impossibly broad these are? They usually include a time bar, asking if you've ever done this in your entire life prior to this year. It essentially forces you to mentally scour your past for every single minor childhood infraction, which naturally drives up your physical stress markers. But of course, the examiner doesn't just sit there and explain this sophisticated balancing act to you. Instead, they disguise the trap entirely. They refer to the relevant questions as security questions and the comparison questions as integrity questions. They use these softer, friendlier labels to keep the subject completely in the dark about how the test is actually being scored. You're instructed to answer every single question as if it holds equal weight regarding your loyalty and your clearance, which, as we just saw, is simply not true. Section 3, the verdict. 4 possible outcomes. So there are 4 possible outcomes once those charts are finally printed. First up is no deception indicated, or NDI. This is a pass. And remember how the CQT works? You actually get an NDI if your physical reaction to those broad comparison questions was measurably higher than your reaction to the relevant SPY questions. Second is deception indicated, or DI. This is a fail. It means your reaction to the relevant questions was higher. Third is inconclusive, which just means the examiner simply can't tell either way. And fourth is incomplete, usually due to a machine malfunction or maybe the test having to be cut short. Section 4, the climax, when the machine flags you. Now, if you happen to hit a deception indicated or even just an inconclusive result, the whole timeline of the interview fractures. You start in step 1 with this friendly, genial pre-interview where the examiner is really building rapport with you, but the exact moment that negative result registers, step 3 triggers. The clinical distance vanishes, and the interview turns ruthlessly adversarial almost instantly. It is a highly calculated, terrifying escalation entirely designed to break you down. And as you can imagine, this leads to a highly dangerous scenario, because a negative machine result is treated as absolute, undeniable adverse information. Examiners launch right into repetitive, aggressive questioning. The implication in the room is crystal clear. The machine says you're lying, and you aren't leaving this room until you confess. This intense pressure cooker creates a severe risk of subjects actually fabricating information just to appease their interrogator. The psychological toll here is just massive. We regularly see instances where subjects who initially claim to be fully forthcoming eventually disclose information about which they appear totally uncertain. I mean, imagine being an honest applicant, told by a powerful government authority that your own body is proving you are a liar. Subjects frantically scour their memories, literally second-guessing their entire lives, desperately trying to find some minor, long-forgotten infraction that might explain to the examiner why the machine is failing them. This creates what we can call the false disclosure trap. Under this extreme adversarial pressure, completely innocent, terrified people begin to invent hypothetical mistakes. They start volunteering possible examples, saying things like, well, maybe I mishandled a document once and just forgot about it. They offer speculative answers, not definitive memories, purely to make the relentless interrogation stop. And the truly alarming part? The examiners often accept these totally hypothetical statements as factual confessions to justify their initial failing grade. And the collateral damage of this is immense. Just to satisfy the relentless demands of the examiner, individuals are essentially forced to expose deeply personal traumas completely unnecessarily. Subjects end up revealing highly private details, past traumatic events, totally irrelevant private life information, and complex medical histories, none of which have absolutely anything to do with their actual loyalty to the country. It is a profoundly invasive process, and it's all driven by a flawed psychological mechanism. So the crucial point we are left to ponder at the end of the day is this. Is the psychological cost and the very real risk of forced, false disclosures truly worth the price of a security clearance? When intelligence agencies rely on this kind of interrogation trap, are they actually securing the nation, or are they just breaking down honest people? It's a fascinating, if not entirely chilling reality of the shadow world. Well, I really hope this breakdown gave you a clear, structured understanding of exactly what happens inside the polygraph room. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Until next time, keep questioning everything.